Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today I thought we could do something a little bit different. I've come to realize as of late that many people just don't know what open world actually means. I keep seeing different people refer to different games that are not open world, like definitely not open world, as open world games, and I think this is a problem. I totally understand that definitions can morph and change throughout time, there are colloquialisms, but when you start referring to certain games as open world when they're really not, and someone decides to give that game a try because they thought it was open world or they thought it wasn't open world and then it ends up being or not being, then that becomes a problem. So I think it's important to clear up what open world actually means. So what I thought might be a fun way to do it is to put together a little bit of a quiz. So I'm going to share with you 15 different games, Nintendo games, because it's a Nintendo channel. For the most part, there will be Nintendo games at least. And the few seconds of footage I share for each game, you're going to have to decide if it's open world or not. Keep that in mind. And then I will explain why each game shown is open world or not open world. And then tell everyone what score you got in the comments below. Will you get a full 15? Will you get just 5? I think this is going to end up being a fun little exercise while also helping to explain what open world actually is, at least in regards to Nintendo games. So that's what we're getting into today. Now before going forward, if you do find yourself enjoying my videos, I would very much appreciate your subscription if you haven't subscribed already. Your support would make a huge difference. But on to the quiz. So, how do you think you did? Let's start breaking them down. So, here's Tears of the Kingdom. If you said Tears of the Kingdom is open world, then guess what? You were wrong. It's not open world. Nintendo defines Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom as open air. I'm kidding. Well, they do define them as open air, but it's still open world. The reason these games are open world is because the entire worlds are open. It's a continuous world you can explore without any loading screens, and you can go about exploring the game for the most part in a non-linear fashion. But this is one I'm sure most people got right. But now let's take a look at Skyward Sword. You might look at certain parts of Skyward Sword and think, oh, that's open world, look at this vast area to explore. But that isn't open world. Skyward Sword is actually a very linear game that's highly segmented. It is not a continuous world. It may have regions where you can move about freely, but they are regions, not one continuous world, and there's a set path that you explore throughout the game, so it's not open world. But moving on to the next one, Mario Kart World. It's open world. Why? It's one giant, seamless environment, and you can go about exploring it however you choose. This is an open world experience. But how about Metroid Prime 4? I've seen many people refer to Metroid Prime 4 as having an open world, and this could not be further from the truth. A Metroid game is about having a locked world that as you progress, you slowly unlock various areas and find methods to progress further. Metroid games in general are actually fairly linear. They may fool you into thinking they're non-linear and there may be some sequence breaking, but for the most part they are linear, and they are highly segmented, oftentimes depicted with many hallways and rooms, and not giant open areas. Except with Metroid Prime 4, there are some larger rooms with vast expanses, and there is also the vast desert, a hub area that many people may confuse to be an open world. But the thing is, it's an open zone. It is a single region within Metroid Prime 4 that you can move about freely, and as you progress throughout the game, you may obtain some powers that will allow you to access certain shrines and such throughout the environment, and you can, in theory, do that in your own personal order. But basically, Metroid Prime 4 is a linear game that has a hub area with some open exploration, but it's definitely not open world. It's a locked world. But here's another game that I've seen some people get confused about: Super Mario Odyssey. If you said Super Mario Odyssey is an open world, you would be wrong. Mario Odyssey is not an open world game. Open world does not mean exploration beyond a hallway. So when you see Mario running around this metropolis or around these fields, that doesn't make it open world just because you have some freedom of movement. There may be some large areas to explore in Mario Odyssey, but all these areas are segmented. There's no seamless transition between them. You have to go into the Odyssey ship and travel over to them. It's a loading screen. They are very segmented, not one continuous world. But how about Bowser's Fury? Bowser's Fury is a little bit of an expansion quest added to Super Mario 3D World. And while I didn't specifically ask about Super Mario 3D World is not an open world game. It's a level-based Mario game. Bowser's Fury, on the other hand, is a side experience, a little bit of a side adventure added in, that is an open world experience. Now, as you progress, it opens up. At first, there's only so much to explore, but ultimately, yes, it is an open world game where you have this continuous world to explore, and as you progress, you unlock more and more of this map, and you can explore about collecting all the different shines, for the most part, however you choose. While there may be some linear progression, overall, it's a continuous open world that has a lot of non-linear exploration. And perhaps this is where things start to get a little bit confusing, because there are different types of games, and not every game is going to fit in one exact definition, but there are certain games where it's very clear it's not open world, and there are others where it is. If you have segmented regions that are separated by a long loading screen, then it's not open world. But if it's a seamless, continuous environment, there may be some small separate areas that you have to load into, but if for the most part the game is one giant, seamless world to explore, that is open world. But let's move on to another series that many people get confused about. So here we have Xenoblade Chronicles X. Xenoblade Chronicles X, most would define as an open world. There may be a linear story progression in terms of the chapters, but for the most part, the world you can go about exploring however you choose. You can go to pretty much any region very early on to the game and do as you please. You can ignore the main story as you can for most open world games for a very long time. There is a lot of non-linear gameplay in Xenoblade Chronicles X. However, there is still some linear progression, and after a certain point you obtain the skells that open up the world even more, where you can explore even higher up regions of the environment. But yes, it's one giant continuous world with a lot of non-linear exploration. So Xenoblade Chronicles X is an open world. However, Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, and 3, the one I showed, are not open world, even though many people might refer to them as open world, because they see these vast expanses, these giant regions to explore, and the games even do a good job of making it feel continuous, so it can be confusing. But the Xenoblade games are more like wide linear. You have these vast environments, but excluding X, 1, 2, and 3, and their expansions, you're moving in one direction from one region to another. There's a certain sequence. Now you can go back, like any other game, to these different areas and explore and do some side quests, but these regions are not interconnected where you can flow through them seamlessly. They are all giant zones that are segmented, separated, not one giant continuous world. And most of the exploration in these games are totally linear. So only Xenoblade Chronicles X is open world, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is not open world. But let's go through some hopefully easier ones now. Monster Hunter Rise. There are some big zones, but they are all separated regions. Not one seamless continuous world, not open world. Astral Chain. There are some cool environments you can explore about with a little bit of freedom, but it is a level-based game. They are all segmented areas, not open world. Starlink. You can freely explore this entire solar system, flying seamlessly throughout the entire space and seamlessly going into the planets and exiting them. This is very clearly an open world game with a lot of non-linear progression. You can ignore the main story for many hours and do so many other things. But here's an example that might be a little confusing. Donkey Kong Bonanza. Donkey Kong Bonanza is not open world, but it might look like that to some people because you do have really big areas. The areas are bigger than even Mario Odyssey, and the game does a good job, similar to the Xenoblade games, of making the world feel very connected because you just kind of jump down these holes to go to the next area, and these holes are essentially loading screens, but they are playable. So the game does a good job of making the world feel connected and seamless, but it's not one giant continuous world ultimately, but just various big maps. They are all just giant levels. Basically like Mario Odyssey, a lot of open zones, but not one giant open world. Moving on to the Pokémon games. Pokémon Scarlet and Violet. These are open world. You have this giant expanse to explore, and you can progress throughout the game in any order you choose for the most part. It has non-linear progression. It's one giant continuous world. Pokemon Arceus, however, while there may be a fair amount of freedom within the different zones, it is different zones, not one giant continuous world. So it's not open world. And now on to the final one, The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. If you said this game is not open world, you would be correct. But if you said this game is open world, you would also be correct. Or vice versa. Wind Waker is a little bit of a weird hybrid in my opinion, so for this one I would say you got the point regardless. So Wind Waker presents as an open world. After the first few hours of the game, exploration opens up and you can explore the open seas and go to any island you choose basically. However, there are certain islands that you can't really access. There are parts of the world that are locked. Several parts of the world that are locked, very much like a lot of other Zelda games before Breath and Tears of the Kingdom, very much like a Metroid game. It's a locked world, but there's a lot of open exploration within. So it's a little bit of a weird hybrid. The Wind Waker, when it came out at the time, was an attempt to make an open world like Zelda game. That's what they were able to do with the technology at the time. And I think it's a great game to look at because it does highlight how confusing it can be at times to label some of these experiences, because there are games that have a very linear story within an open world, and then there are games that have an open world with a very non-linear story. And so those elements can confuse things, and then as you progress in certain games, maybe at first the world is very small and limited, but it can open up, like Bowser's Fury. And then there are other games that are not open world, but do a good job of making the world feel very vast, and give you a great sense of a seamless, continuous adventure, like Donkey Kong Bonanza. But hopefully after going through all these examples, I've at least made it clear what isn't an open world. If a game has segmented regions that are separated by loading screens, it is not an open world. Maybe an open world can have some small areas that are loaded in, but the majority of the game should be one giant, continuous, vast area. And oftentimes there's a lot of progression that is non-linear that you can do however you choose, even if there is still a linear story within. But what score did you get on this Nintendo Open World quiz? Let me know in the comments below, but that's all for now, everyone. Thank you all so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.